Welcome. We're glad you're here with us in this new adventure that we are all on in virtual space in the internet. We are so glad that you can join us. I want to encourage you, if you are on Facebook Live during this worship service, make comments if you would like. I know during the prayer time in the last service, people were making comments, and our Pass the Peace time. Share with one another. It's a good way for us to see who's online and who is present with us this morning. I did want to make a couple of announcements. We have had a couple of calls into the church asking about groceries and different needs that people have had. One thing that we are recommending right now, there's a Facebook group called Pandemic Partners, which was begun by the folks over at First Presbyterian Church. And they are a wonderful resource right now, connecting people who are in need of things with people who can help. And many in our congregation are a part of that group as well. So if you do need something and have access to Facebook, that's a good way to reach out. If you are not online, which is something that I wanted to bring up this morning, there are many in our congregation who can worship with us in this virtual way. There are many who do not have access to this sort of platform. So if you know of someone who does not have Facebook or internet, reach out to them. Make phone calls, write letters. The health ministry team, the caregiving ministry team, and the safety team has already been assigned many people to be calling and have volunteered to do so. But we can all be doing that during this time. So I hope that we are finding ways to be connected, and I'm glad to see you all today. Until further notice, you all know the building is closed. Erin is in and out, and she is able to answer phones when she's here all by herself. But our messages come to the staff through our email, so feel free to continue to call and email us through the week. All right, let's all take a deep breath as we begin our time together this morning. The path of life is rarely clear or straightforward. We find ourselves lost in a dark wood, unclear which direction to go, perhaps having strayed from the path we thought we were on. It is at these times that the gift of getting lost is that we are invited to begin to pay more attention than we usually do. Perhaps we are looking for blatant signs when the subtle nudges of spirit are already there. Our Lent journey invites us to get quiet and open wide our senses. Permeating love, enter our lives and open us to the gifts residing deep within the holy darkness. When we feel overwhelmed by the twists and turns of life, quiet us, open us, heighten our senses to perceive your nudge toward life. In your many names we pray. Amen. And now join us in our opening hymn, Be Still My Soul, hymn number 534. During the season of Lent, we have spoken confessions and listened to assurances. We are invited into that time now. For plunging ahead without listening to you, forgive and restore us, O God. For not recognizing your still small voice within us, forgive and restore us, O God. For forgetting to ask for assurance, your greatest gift, forgive and restore us, O God. Hear these words of assurance. God is with us. Lost is not lost to God. You are not lost to God. God is with you, forgiving and restoring you to wholeheartedness. Thanks be to God. Amen. And now, normally we would be walking around and passing the peace of Christ to one another. I would like to invite us to do that virtually now, where you are in your homes, to whoever you're with, but also you are free to make comments, passing peace to one another online. We have two scripture readings this morning. The first is from Psalm 42. As the deer longs for flowing streams, so my soul longs for you, O God. My soul thirsts for God, for the living God. When shall I come and behold the face of God? My tears have been my food day and night. When people say to me continually, where is your God? And the second reading is from 1 Samuel 3, 1 through 11. Now the boy Samuel was ministering to the Lord under Eli. The word of the Lord was rare in those days. Visions were not widespread. At that time, Eli, whose eyesight had begun to grow dim so that he could not see, was lying down in his room. The lamp of God had not yet gone out, and Samuel was lying down in the temple of the Lord where the ark of God was. Then the Lord called, Samuel, Samuel. And he said, Here I am, and ran to Eli and said, Here I am, you called for me. But he said, I did not call. Lie down again. So he went and lay down. The Lord called again, Samuel. Samuel got up and went to Eli and said, Here I am, for you called me. But he said, I did not call, my son. Lie down again. Now Samuel did not yet know the Lord, and the word of the Lord had not yet been revealed to him. The Lord called Samuel again a third time, and he got up and went to Eli and said, Here I am, for you called me. Then Eli perceived that the Lord was calling the boy. Therefore Eli said to Samuel, Go, lie down, and if he calls you, you shall say, Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening. So Samuel went and lay down in his place. Now the Lord came and stood there, calling as before, "Samuel, Samuel." And Samuel said, "Speak, for your servant is listening." Then the Lord said to Samuel, "See, I am about to do something in Israel that will make both ears of anyone who hears it tingle." As the deer panteth for the water, so my soul longeth after thee. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship thee. You alone, my strength, my shield. To you alone may my spirit yield. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship thee. And now a contemporary reading from David Wagner. Stand still. The trees ahead and bushes beside you are not lost. Wherever you are is called here, and you must treat it as a powerful stranger, must ask permission to know it and be known. The forest breathes. Listen. It answers. I have made this place around you. If you leave it, you may come back again, saying, "Here." No two trees are the same to raven, no two branches are the same to wren. If what a tree or bush does is lost on you, you are surely lost. Stand still. The forest knows where you are. You must let it find you. As the deer panteth for the water, so my soul longeth after you. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship thee. You alone, my strength, my shield. To you alone may my spirit yield. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship you. In the last few weeks, more than usual, I feel like I've spent a large amount of time searching for the newest information I can find. News reports, press briefings. I've signed up for the daily email from Deschutes County giving me the daily update for our region. I find myself refreshing Facebook on our sites to find out who is doing what. I'm making all of these phone calls, checking in with my parents and my family and my friends more regularly. What is the newest information, the update, the count? At times it feels desperate. I think that some of it is just instinct. This global health crisis, a pandemic, what do I need to get ready? How will I feed my kids? How can I arrange my day, my life, my house to best optimize our health and sanity? In our case, with the healthcare provider in our home, how can we keep all of us as safe as possible? What is the newest information? I see it. All of us fumbling around. This is unprecedented. Any shred of information or new instruction holds this authority. So I found that as I began my preparations for this morning, this week, I struggled to slow my mind down enough to focus. In fact, last Sunday as I was leaving my office, I started randomly just grabbing books off my shelf, anything that I thought might be remotely helpful this week, shoving them into my bag. What is the best? What is the most current information? But the task of coming to this space is very different. What we do here together, even in this remote way, is actively pace ourselves into being present here together. We don't have a banner underneath the screen with the latest, newest updates. And in fact, the things that we talk about and reflect on together in this space are ancient. These are old practices. This is old news. It is a practice of contrasts, a turning. And so I invite you into that space again as we dig in a little. And the story that we have before us in this time this morning is one of the most beautiful, one of my favorite passages in all of our sacred scriptures. I don't know when and I don't know how I know it, but I know deep in my spirit that it was told to me, it was told in story form to me by someone who loved me a long time ago. Because when I read it, I experience one of the most intimate feelings that I have of God. So let me tell you how it goes. Israel had changed. It had become a place where strong leadership was lacking. According to the book of Judges, there is no king. The people had begun to follow their own minds, their own idea of what it meant to be in community. The people, they still would come to the temple, but religious lethargy has left the times devoid of divine animation. Visions were few. Rituals were steady, but only rarely provoked a divine encounter. We read, the word of the Lord was rare in those days. Visions were not widespread. And Eli was the priest, and he was in distress. We read in the chapter before this that his sons were getting in a lot of trouble. They were out of control. Eli had tried to intervene and warn his sons, but he would soon learn that their actions were going to change the history of their family, and that their family was going to suffer for what was happening in the temple. I imagine that his days and nights were fraught with concern, with fear. And in this time, maybe this temple that was once bustling feels sort of empty. I wonder how much Eli thought about where God was, how many times he sat in the temple and longed for God to reveal something, anything, to keep him going. He was going blind. He was old and tired. But Samuel was there. Samuel, born to Hannah after her pleas to God for a son. Samuel, weaned by his mother and given to the service of God at a very young age. Samuel, who grew in stature and character and was ministering alongside Eli. Samuel was raised in the temple, raised surrounded by the sights and the sounds and smells of ancient ritual day in and day out. Samuel, who perhaps carried with him a spirit of hope for old Eli. And then one night, as they were sleeping in their quarters, all of a sudden Samuel hears a voice calling him. So close, so familiar. Not a burning bush, not a strike of lightning. Eli? A nighttime dash on the cold clay of the floor. Yes, Eli, you called? Samuel, eager as always to help. Eli awakens. Maybe he's startled or maybe he heard him coming. No, boy, not me. Go back to sleep. So Samuel walks back to his room and lays down. Could have sworn he heard something. And again, Samuel. 3 times total, the boy runs as he's assuming that he's being beckoned by his teacher. And then old Eli, who had seen the change in the community, in the temple, people day in and day out going through the motions, perhaps could it be? We might as well try. Listen, Samuel. Listen and be ready for what God is going to tell you. So Samuel goes back and postures himself to listen. Then God speaks to this young person, gentle as a whisper in the night. What God reveals to Samuel changes the course of his life and the trajectory of leadership for generations. I don't know about you, but nighttime right now is a hard time for me. I'm not sleeping particularly well. Barbara Brown Taylor says, a bed is where you come face to face with what really matters because it's too dark for most of your usual shallow distractions to work. It is in the darkness, in the quiet of the night, that God speaks to Samuel. We keep talking about the dark woods during Lent, about being authentic together, about times in our life where uncertainty, emptiness reign. Times where we feel lost, and we are telling each other over and over again in this season the story of resilience, or how we have been transformed during those times, how we have felt God's presence or realized the mystery that is God with us all along. This story too promises God's connection, God's beckoning and finding us in the times we feel lost. I'm going to be honest, we don't all feel lost at the same time or found at the same time. The truth is that in a community of this size, none of us are going to all be on the same exact page at the same time. Maybe the same Facebook page, but not the same emotional page. As I spoke with many people this week, I had a myriad of responses to, how are you doing? Frankly, there was even a lot of fluctuation in our own home. And this is only the beginning of what is going to be a very difficult time. We all go through difficulty, whether grief or change, in our own time. So here's what I'm asking. For those of us who are like Eli, tired, scared, afraid, I invite us to be honest about that, and let's practice grace and empathy. We have learned over the weeks that authentic expression about all the elements of life is important to a life of faith. We have the capacity to hear each other's pain. And for those of us who are, in moments, able to hear God's voice, God's beckoning, let's be honest about that and listen. We can nurture the capacity to hear each other and to hear God in these times as well. And when those of us who have been able to listen, when that changes, and in the days to come when we become tired, we will look to the others who have endured and are listening, and we will be able to listen again. And when we come running to one another in the dark, will we remind each other to listen to that genuine voice. Resilience and foundness doesn't just come in one fell swoop and then one is never lost again. It is the practice of a community in the midst of suffering to persevere in the posture of being found. Let us return to the scriptures, to the practices that ground us like deep roots. Let us not give up meeting together in authentic and loving ways, for that is our call from within the dark wood. Amen. Listening to words, some contemporary, some very, very old, may inspire in us different responses. In this space, this virtual space today, we recognize all the ways that we may respond. We will have a moment of silence as we reflect. You are encouraged to write, to make a comment, to sit quietly, to pray, or to reach out in other ways in response to the place that you are today. There are many people who are walking the dark woods for various reasons. Let us lift up the names of those who need our prayers. God, in your mercy, hear our prayer. There are many places in this world where help is needed. Let us lift up names of places in this world that need our prayers. God, in your mercy, hear our prayer. And now I invite us all to pray the Lord's Prayer together. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who've trespassed against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. We are journeying together. We will continue to journey in whatever form we need to. Connected through God's Spirit, we are not abandoned. In these moments, we are invited to hold gratitude for each other and for the ongoing ministry of this church. It is through our giving that we have an opportunity to show what we believe in. May our gifts given during this time and season and all throughout the week be blessed to sustain God's work in this world. now a blessing. You have a place in this world. May the Spirit of the living God, made known to us most fully within life's dark wood, go before you to show you the way, go above you to watch over you, go behind you to push you into places you might not necessarily go yourself, go beneath you to uphold and uplift you, go beside you to be your strong and constant companion, and dwell within you to remind you that you are surely not alone, and that you are loved, loved beyond your wildest imagination. And may the fire of God's blessing burn brightly upon you and within you, now and always. Amen.